I grew up in a small town in the Midwest where people left their doors unlocked and came home when the streetlights turned on at dusk. After moving away for college, I decided to move back to my quiet, sleepy hometown and rented one of the 2 apartment buildings. I lived there for roughly 3 months, and one night, I went to sleep early on a Friday night. As a reasonably hard sleeper, I was immediately alarmed when I woke up in the middle of the night to noises. To provide a better understanding of my apartment layout, as you walk in the front door, the kitchen is on the left and the living room is on the right. There's a hallway straight ahead with 1 bedroom at the end. A bathroom is on the left in the hall, and my bedroom is on the right. I got up from my bed, walked around the end of my bed, and peeked my head out of the bedroom door. I looked to the left to see my front door open to the outside hallway, and there was a loud voice coming from my illuminated kitchen. From my vantage point, I was unable to see into my kitchen, and I froze. It may have only been a couple of heartbeats, but to me, it felt like an eternity. I came to my senses after realizing that I'd unconsciously stopped breathing. I took a shallow breath to steady my mind and gather my courage. At this point, there was no thought process about what to do. I let my body and instincts take over. I turned around and headed back to the far side of my bed. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand and quietly removed it from the charger. Luckily, my bed frame was high enough for me to squeeze under without much difficulty. I immediately realized that there was no escape from my hiding spot if things turned south. I would have to rely on luck to get me through this. I dialed 911, and a woman answered and asked about my emergency. I briefly explained, in a whisper, that an unknown man was in my apartment and that I was currently safe. I lay there, listening to the chaos in my home, reassured by the presence of my cat, Marcy, who was laying under the bed with me. It seemed to me that he was on a phone call based on his one-sided rambling. I told the operator this fact and explained my fear that he was going to bring other people into my home. He was making enough noise to allow me to give a play-by-play of the call. He started screaming about killing someone. At this point, I was unsure whether he was talking to the person on the phone or if he knew I was there. The voice was unfamiliar, but this did little to ease my terror. He then started ringing the doorbell in the outside hallway and yelling for me to come out. My blood ran cold as I realized that he might come to try and find me. Marcy was alarmed by the doorbell that hadn't ceased ringing, and she crept out from under the bed. I panicked. What if he heard her? I started whispering as loudly as possible to get her attention without letting him know my location. She sensed my unease and crawled back under the bed with me. At this point, it felt like an eternity, and I asked the operator how long until the police arrived. She was unsure, but assured me they were on their way. My town was roughly a 30-minute drive to the nearest city police station, but I assumed there was a highway patrol that would be coming soon. Little did I know that safety was in a rush to get to me. I heard him walking around my apartment and entering my extra bedroom, which was my storage room with a bed. He hadn't stopped yelling. I was still unaware whether he was on the phone or not. I heard him mention that it must be a kid's room. I shushed the operator because he had ceased his screaming for the moment. I heard more noises like he was going through boxes and throwing things. Then my fear was realized as I heard him quietly enter my room. I saw his feet walk to my closet from my vantage point. He started going through my clothes and emptying out my closet onto the floor. He turned around and walked to my bed and sat down. I stopped breathing. I thought he laid down at this point since the pressure of the bed lessened on top of me. He was deadly silent, and I was still holding my breath. There was shuffling and moving around, and he got up and walked out of my room. I took a shallow breath and steadied my conviction. He started making noise again, like he was throwing and punching things. I informed the operator that he was just in my room and the police needed to hurry. I didn't know how long I could keep Marcy under the bed and was concerned about what could happen if he found me. He walked back into the kids' room quietly. I shushed the operator again because she was continually asking me for a play-by-play. I heard him breathing from the other room. After the quietest few minutes of my life, he yelled, "Who's there?" I froze again, listening for movement. Nothing. I was starting to get lightheaded from my shallow breathing. The silence was deafening, and I feared he was trying to detect me. After a lifetime, I heard footsteps entering my apartment. I heard a man's voice say,
"Hey bud, you're in the wrong house."
I had never felt more relief in my life before this night or since. I heard my door close and I crawled out from under the bed and broke down. The adrenaline and anxiety took over as soon as the feeling of safety washed over me. A female officer came around to my side of the bed and put her hands on my shoulder. I was trying to keep it together and failing miserably. She let me put clothes on, and I could hear 3 male voices coming from my apartment. The woman left and came back with a handful of clothes asking if any were mine. They all were, and I answered in kind. She shut the door behind her as she left again. I turned and looked out my window and saw no lights from the cop car on the street. I looked at my phone and realized call 911 took 19 minutes. I couldn't explain the feelings I had at this time since many hit me all at once. The door opened and the officer motioned for me to exit. Taking a first look at my home was almost as anxious as the event itself. My apartment was a complete mess. Clothes were everywhere, mixed with garbage and other belongings from my shelves and counters. This man had removed items that he had intended on taking and placed them in the outside hallway. They told me that they found him on the floor in the second room, completely naked and holding a bottle of lotion. In his vicinity, there was a winter hat with an unknown substance inside. The officer was kind enough to throw that in the garbage bag immediately. They asked me to look and see if any of the clothes in the apartment did not belong to me. I told them no. This man entered my home, completely naked, and destroyed it. I noticed that the lid of my garbage can was filled with cat poop. It seemed that it had been separated from the rest of the bag. The rest of the bag was littering the outside hallway. They asked me if I would like to stay there or go elsewhere. Thankfully, my parents lived down the street and I had an officer drive me there. I explained to my parents what had just happened, and in the next few days, I had to explain this situation to what felt like half the town. The ridiculousness of the story caught people's attention and became a slight joke. I played along, attempting to be lighthearted, but I was unable to disassociate from the horror I faced. Now, I should feel better knowing that he is in custody, but the events after the break-in did little to comfort me. An officer showed up with a subpoena to appear in court to testify, but I received a call for a postponement. I just wanted this behind me. After a month, I called the phone number on the paper I received and asked when they were rescheduling for since I had not heard anything. The woman informed me that they mailed another and I had not shown up. I asked, where was it sent, since I have not received a summons? She told me that they sent it to my address, but the wrong town. How could they not know where I lived? The crime happened here. She told me that he pleaded guilty and was given 8 weeks. I was furious. This man would get out in a short 8 weeks for attempting to steal and entering my home? She reassured me that he also received another 8 weeks for a previous bench warrant he had. What justice is there that someone with priors gets a short 3 months for traumatizing a stranger? After his release, I kept track of his location using the sex offender registry. He had had relations with a child years prior. It makes his statements about the kids' room even more unsettling. He was arrested, yet again, for a fourth DUI shortly after his release and sentenced to 5 years with 2 suspended. It has been 2 years since this happened, and I've since moved 3 times. I don't know if I'll ever be content and happy anywhere, but I'm hoping that is not the case. This happened quite a while ago when I was 15 years old and was home alone with just my dog. After all this time, I'm sure what happened was really strange, and I have no idea what this man actually wanted. So I was watching TV one night at about 11 p.m. when I heard a car pull up outside and the engine shut off. I figured it was obviously a neighbor, but my nosy dog wanted to have a look and went to the window. He kind of messed the blinds up when he went to look, so I got up to fix them. When I did, I noticed a car parked on the street across from my house and my neighbor's house. I couldn't really make out any details, but it looked like the driver was still sitting in the car. I didn't really think anything of it. I got a drink and went back to watching TV. Quite a while had passed since I fixed the blind, but not sure how long. I guess 15, 20 minutes. Out of nowhere, I thought I heard tapping at the door. Not a knock. It was much lighter and very quiet. My dog sat up to look at the door, and I paused the TV when the same tapping then started on the window. I opened the blinds a little and saw a man standing there. I couldn't make out his face properly, and he immediately walked back to the door and started tapping at it again. I'm not sure why, but I suddenly had a really awful feeling. I felt absolutely terrified and had no idea why. The tapping at the door never stopped, but something in my head was saying, if I opened the door to him, then something really bad would happen. I went upstairs to open a window to ask what he wanted. It felt safer doing this. He said in a really quiet voice he was delivering pizza and told me how much it cost. I felt stupid for being frightened and told him I didn't order pizza. I guessed he was speaking quietly and knocking lightly so he didn't disturb my neighbors. My dog had followed me upstairs and was letting out the odd growl and bark, which isn't really unusual for him. I was trying to shush him when the man downstairs told me he had the correct address and I better get downstairs now, open the door to pay what I owed, and collect my food before it got cold. I was really confused because I most definitely didn't order any food and began telling him that again. That's when I noticed. He didn't have a pizza. He wasn't carrying anything at all. I told him again that he had the wrong address, and he got really angry. He kept telling me to open the door. He was going between angry and sort of trying to persuade me to come back downstairs. I asked him where the pizza was. He said he was holding it. It was really dark, but he definitely didn't have anything in his hands. My dog was really making quite a bit of a fuss at this point, and the stranger had turned into a broken record. Come downstairs, open the door. Come downstairs and open the door. All the noise must have alerted my neighbor, who did open his front door. And the man didn't say a word, but practically ran across the street to the car that I had heard pull up a while ago. He went back to the car empty-handed. I have no idea what he wanted, but he certainly wasn't a delivery driver. It really freaked me out as well, that my dog is quite obviously a large breed, and the man saw him through the window. He wasn't deterred at all. It seems even stranger and less random that he actually drove to my house, as though he'd planned on showing up. I was 17, and my parents had gone out of state for a month-long vacation. I live in a small, nice neighborhood, just quite a distance from any other neighborhoods around us. There are always summer barbecues and parties now and then, and everyone attends these. I'm very familiar with who lives in the neighborhood, as I can name off a majority of them. The neighborhood is always dead quiet after 9 p.m., as the kids are inside by then, and families are usually heading off to bed. I'm into spray paint art, and I decided to work on a painting in my garage at around 10 p.m. because it was cooler by then. Mind that the garage door was fully open. I was setting out a tarp so I could start painting when I heard someone walking on the sidewalk. I looked up, expecting to say hi to a neighbor going on a late-night walk around the neighborhood. Instead, it was a man whom I thought I couldn't recognize at first glance, due to it being dark and the only decent light source around me was from the garage. He was at least 6'3", lanky, and looked completely normal from what I could see. The man stood at the end of my driveway facing me, with a little light stretching across the driveway hitting his face. I didn't recognize him. I live in a very friendly state where we're usually nice to strangers and make conversations. I thought nothing suspicious, as he could have just been a neighbor I wasn't familiar with. So I struck up a conversation, like I usually do. I said, "Hi, how's it going?"
Hi. It's going good so far.
"Sorry, I don't really recognize you because it's so dark."
Oh, I'm Justin.
"Justin? I don't think I've ever met you before. Did you just move into the neighborhood or something?"
Yeah. I moved into the corner house up the street.
"You moved in with the Millers?"
Yeah, the Millers. I moved in with them. They're my cousins, and they're letting me stay with them until I figure some things out.
I thought nothing of this, as this seemed normal for a family to let a member of theirs to stay with them for a while, and the Millers are just those kind of people.
Well, I better get going. I need to finish something. It was nice meeting you, Chris.
I never introduced myself, I think.
Oh, the Millers told me all about you.
I thought nothing of this as well because I would babysit the Millers' kids frequently and my family is close with them. Justin kept walking and I thought nothing of what just happened and started painting. The next morning, I went on a run to my high school that was about 3 miles away. My high school is on a common road that always has cars on it. As I was nearing the school, I heard a car pull up behind me. I stopped running and turned around to see a beat-up car with the windows rolled down. A smiling man was sitting in the driver's seat. He looked to be in his mid to late 20s, and he had a fairly handsome face.
Hi.
I probably had a confused look on my face as I didn't recognize the man, but I knew his voice from somewhere.
Justin. We met the other night?
"Oh, hi. Sorry, I didn't recognize you."
It's fine. Hey, you're pretty far from home. That's quite a long run. Aren't you tired? I can give you a ride home if you'd like.
"Oh, no, it's fine. I like running. Thanks for the offer, though."
Want to go out for a cup of coffee?
"No thanks, I don't drink coffee."
We don't have to get coffee then. I'll pay for you. Come on. I want to go get something with you.
"No thanks, I'm not really interested."
Oh, come on. Let's go, hop in.
He reaches over to open the passenger door and beckons me to come in. At this point, it's clear that I don't want to go, and I step off from the grass and back onto the sidewalk. I said no. Sorry.
Come on, just get in the car. It's not a big deal.
I gotta go. Some friends are expecting me. I sprinted to the school's track and called a friend to pick me up. While waiting at the track for my friend, Justin's beat-up car drove away from my neighborhood. I didn't think much of it, as few bad things happen in my city, and shook it off, which was stupid in hindsight. A few days later, there was a neighborhood barbecue. Although my parents were out of town, I didn't mind going alone because it's always fun. I hung out with my neighborhood friends and ran into the Millers. We chatted, and I mentioned meeting Justin the other night. The Millers had no idea who I was talking about. They said no family members had moved in with them. I explained what happened at the school, and we all began to worry. The Millers called over a neighborhood who's a cop. Let's call him Popo. I told him about my encounters with Justin and what he looked like. Popo advised me to call him or the cops if I ever felt unsafe or encountered the guy again. Popo patrolled our neighborhood for a few weeks, and neighbors kept a lookout for Justin, not letting their children out late. However, there was no sign of Justin for 2 weeks. One day, I returned home late at night from a friend's house. I parked my car in the garage and went inside. As I was making something to eat with the lights on, I heard a soft knock on the front door. It was late, but I assumed it was just a friend. So I walked across my house like I usually did. From the front door, I could hear footsteps, and I thought it was just a regular visitor. I looked through the peephole and saw Justin's wide smile. He was at my door, late at night, with a large backpack. He said,
"I'm sorry about last time. Didn't mean to be like that, Chris. It was just a bad day."
I wanted him to go away, and I intended to yell, "Get the hell away from me!" through the closed door, but all that came out was a lame whimper. Justin persisted, saying,
"I just came to apologize. Open the door. I don't mean any harm."
He tried to wiggle the doorknob, and his voice got louder and louder. I panicked and couldn't think clearly. I couldn't remember where I'd put my phone, and my family didn't have a house phone. Justin began pounding on the door and repeatedly pushing the doorbell while saying,
"Open the door, Chris. Open the door. They're waiting for us."
Suddenly, my dog heard the doorbell and came running down the stairs. He didn't recognize Justin, so he started barking loudly at him from the window. Justin laughed and said,
"They never told me you had a dog. You're smarter than they said you were, Chris."
My dog's barking jolted me back to reality. I realized I left my phone in my car in the garage. I called the cops and Popo. By the time they arrived, Justin had disappeared. I gave them a description of him, and they searched the area for an hour, but couldn't find him. I stayed at a relative's house for a couple of days until my parents returned. We changed all the locks in the house and installed a security system, including floodlights. My parents put me on lockdown, and I hate remembering the sound of Justin's voice saying my name. It makes me physically ill to think about it. It's scary to think that I once thought he had a handsome face. Popo started patrolling the neighborhood every night after his shift ended. What still scares me is how Justin said they